revenue coming in, Mr. President.
A lot of money.
A lot of money.
Our country was a dead country. It was a dead country 1 year ago. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And don't you feel it?
Mr. President, with all of that revenue coming in, tens of billions of dollars, do you think there's the possibility of a rebate to the American public in terms of all of that money?
We're thinking about that, actually. We have so much money coming in. We're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. But we're thinking about a rebate. That's a very good question. You just made a lot of news. We're thinking about a rebate because we have so much money coming in from tariffs that a little rebate for people of a certain income level might be very nice.
President Trump calling on the U.S. an economic power today as he floats putting $200 billion in tariff profits into America's pockets in the form of $2,000 stimulus checks. Here's what he said to me about this topic back in September.
You talk about the hundreds of billions of dollars that have come in because of the tariffs. Would you consider, where's that money going to go? Would you consider giving it back to taxpayers while they wait for some of the things that you just talked about to kick in? Is that an option?
Politically, that's a nice thing to do, but you can do that and you can also pay down debt because we're talking about very big numbers.
So which do you like better?
Both, maybe. I mean, I could see both.
Boy. So we got to talk about a shock announcement, which, I mean, honestly, it's not really shocking because I always knew that President Trump would make this announcement if things went south with so-called low propensity voters, which, again, based off of the election that happened this past week that everybody is overreacting to, it seems as if Democrats are able to get their freaks and their lunatics, again, in the so-called low propensity voters, out to vote against President Trump. And part of the reason why is because people feel like the economy is not doing great right now, okay? People want immediate results. They don't want to wait for the effects of the big, beautiful bill to kick in. They don't even want to wait for tax season, right? That is when most people will see an actual financial return or the big, beautiful bill. That's when companies will really start to see it. People don't even want to wait the tax season, right? People don't want to wait, okay? People are impatient. They want they want money now. That's the honest to God truth, right? People want some relief now, okay? And President Trump has announced that he is going to give people relief, right? He is intending to give out dividend stimulus checks. I want to read this major announcement from President Trump that he put out this morning on Truth. He says, people that are against tariffs are fools. We are now the richest, most respected country in the world with almost no inflation and a record stock market price. 401ks are highest ever. We are taking in trillions of dollars and will soon begin paying down our enormous debt, $37 trillion. Record investment in the U.S. Plants and factories going up all over the place. A dividend of at least $2,000 a person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everyone. So he says, again, a dividend of at least $2,000 a person, not including high-income people. Now, I don't know, what is considered to be high income, right, in today's economy. But he's claiming that high income people, rich folks, are not going to get it. And again, it's going to go to people who are the most needy. Now, also keep in mind, a lot of this depends on how the Supreme Court rules when it comes to the tariffs, okay? There was a case that was seen earlier this week. The Supreme Court is going to decide whether or not the president has the authorization to actually implement the tariffs that he's implemented. So we're going to see what happens. So again, a lot of this depends on how the Supreme Court rules. But as of right now, I want to go ahead and roll a clip from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent discussing the tariffs and also being asked about this tariff dividend proposal from the president. Take a look.
Let's talk about tariffs in the Supreme Court. The president is also posting about tariffs this morning. He's saying people that are against tariffs are fools. We're taking in trillions of dollars. Is that true?
We have over the course of the next few years, we could take in trillions of dollars, George. But the real goal of the tariffs is to rebalance trade and make it more fair. Over time, and the president's goal is to bring back manufacturing to the U.S. For the past two 2, 3, 4 decades. We've seen our manufacturing sector gutted. So what would happen over time is we would take insubstantial money as factories come back to the U.S., as we're seeing now. I was just down in South Carolina at a rare earth magnet plant and a Boeing plant on Friday, and that's I believe 1,500 total new jobs. Tariff income will be substantial, but then that will rebalance. The goal here, George, is to rebalance trade. So tariff income will be substantial at the beginning, it will come down, and then domestic tax revenues will climb as corporate taxes go up and all these high-paying jobs are created.
The president's main argument, though, seems to be that it's about taking in the revenue, and he also promised this morning
no,
a
George,
dividend,
stop
a dividend
right.
of at least $2,000 a person, not including high-income people. How is he going to pay that dividend of $2,000 a person?
It's not about taking in the revenue; it's about rebalancing. And the revenue occurs early on, and then as we rebalance and the jobs come home, then it becomes domestic tax revenue. I haven't spoken to the president about this yet, but it could. The $2,000 dividend could come in lots of forms, in lots of ways, George. It could be just the tax decreases that we are seeing on the president's agenda. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, deductibility of auto loans. So, those are substantial deductions that, are being financed in the tax bill.
Secretary, thanks for your time this morning.
All right, y'all, quick break from the show, because this is important. Look, we talk a lot here about standing up for yourself, not letting big corporations, the government, or anybody else push you around. But what happens when real life hits, car accidents, workplace injuries, medical mistakes, and suddenly you're the little guy going up against a massive insurance company? Well, that's where Morgan & Morgan comes in. There's a reason reporters never run out of breaking news. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. They've recovered over $25 billion for 500,000 clients with more than 1,000 lawyers nationwide, and they're built on one simple idea. For the people. That means when you're hurt, you don't pay them a dime up front. They only get paid if you win. And trust me, these big companies have teams of big lawyers working against you. You need somebody just as powerful fighting for you. When you hire Morgan & Morgan, it's like hiring a legal army that has your back. If you're injured because of somebody else's negligence, you deserve to be paid. So if you've been hurt in an accident, at work, or anywhere in between, don't roll the dice alone. You can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. You can start your claim now by clicking the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen from your phone's camera. Because at the end of the day, protecting yourself and your family isn't just common sense. It's conservative values in action. Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Now, we're going to talk about this potential 2K dividend check, right? Tariff dividend check. But I just want to give a word of caution. President Trump put this out here this morning, and I think it's just a part of the administration and their plans to address so-called affordability, right? Because that is what everybody is obsessed with right now. They're obsessed with affordability. And because we live in an instant gratification society, again, this is not surprising to me. President Trump does not want to be a lame duck president. And again, people aren't going to wait for the supply side stimulus that the Republicans did, right? I mean, they've already done their economic agenda. They've already passed it. Because it's supply side stimulus, you have to wait, right? You got to wait to actually see the results, right? Because again, we're not talking about giving money directly to people, right? What we're talking about with a big, beautiful bill is cutting taxes, cutting regulation, encouraging investment, and that takes time. Okay, that takes time. And a lot of people are going to see it in their tax returns. But again, nobody wants to wait, right? People don't want to wait. Nobody wants to wait. Everybody wants it now. They want it now. They want to feel some results now. And because of that, this is what you get, right? This is what you get. You're going to get these stimulus checks, which in the moment will make life feel more affordable for a lot of people in this country. I'm not going to lie. But in the long run, probably going to cost when it comes to inflation. Now, here's the thing. In full disclosure, I'm probably not going to qualify, right? I'm probably not going to qualify. In my opinion, on these stimulus checks, has nothing to do with whether or not I'm going to get it. Because if they go out, I'm probably not going to get it. But that's okay, because I'm still going to benefit, right? I'm still going to benefit from the stimulus checks going out Because when the government hands out large amounts of money like this to regular everyday people, asset prices go skyrocketing. Okay, that is what happens. Okay, and that leads me to what I really want to talk about here, which is if you do happen to get this stimulus check, I'm not going to spend this whole video boohoo-whining and crying about it. Oh, it's going to cause inflation, because I mean, that is probably what's going to happen. I'm just going to tell you how you beat inflation, right? What a smart person would do, right, with the money if, again, these checks go out, okay? Trump wants to send Americans a dividend tariff check of at least $2,000 a person. History shows the effect. From 2020 to 2021, stimulus checks triggered one of the biggest retail investing waves ever. Stocks like Tesla, Nvidia hit record highs. Crypto saw Bitcoin surge from $4,000 to $69K, Ethereum from $120 to $4,800. Cash injections inflate asset prices faster than goods prices. Markets rally before CPI reacts. So we got another example here. The $1,200 COVID stimulus is now worth $21,000 if you bought Bitcoin with it, right? Last time Trump gave Americans a stimmy check, it was the CARES Act, and adults got $1,200, children got $500. It was signed into law on March 27, 2020. The 2020 stimulus checks ignited the biggest crypto bull run in history, turning $2,100 into $12,000 if invested in BTC at the time. Within days of receiving the stimulus check, both Coinbase and Binance reported surges in $1,200 BTC buys, exact matches to the check amount. Americans spent it all in crypto. Within 6 weeks, BTC pumped 50% from $6,800 to $10,000. During the broader run, BTC went from $3,850 to $69,000. 2020-2021, Ethereum went from $120 to $4,800, and the total market cap went from $180 billion to $3 trillion plus. Yeah, so all that is to say, I'm not telling people what to do with their money, right? Their stimulus check money, okay? Because you got people out here that want to pay bills, right? They want to pay bills, and they, you know, really need it, right? They need it to pay for groceries. And I am hoping that this stimulus check helps those people out, right? In fact, I think that if there is a stimulus check that goes out, the administration should try to send a stimulus check to the people who really are living paycheck to paycheck. They have to spend the money on, you know, groceries and, you know, the necessities. I personally believe that's the best way to do it. But I think that it's probably going to be broader than that, okay? And we've seen what happens when these stimulus checks go out when it comes to asset prices. All I'm saying is that if you want to benefit, okay, then you probably should be invested in assets, right? Again, whether that be Bitcoin, crypto, gold, the stock market, right, as a whole, S&P 500, you can do QQQ. You can take a look at just the Mag 7. You can take a look at the top 100 stocks. You can do a lot of things, right? But I'm just saying that if you want to beat inflation, the inflation that will happen as a result, if you don't want to be stuck holding the bag of inflation, then it's probably best that, you know, you do something productive with the stimulus check, right? I'm just telling people this because I could spend this whole video complaining about it, right? Boo-hoo-whining and crying about it and saying how we shouldn't do it. I know we shouldn't do it. Everybody knows we shouldn't do it, right? I think the president knows that we shouldn't do it. The reality of politics is that people vote. And because people vote, and people vote with their pockets, right? They vote with their wallets. This is what you get, right? When you tell people, hey, you know what? We're going to cut spending. We're going to cut $1 trillion, right? We're going to cut $2 trillion. We're going to balance the budget, right? Which is what it would take. We literally will have to cut $2 trillion, okay? When you say, hey, we're going to have to cut $2 trillion, we're going to have to put the economy into a deep recession in order to force deflation, right? Which will really drive down prices. If you really want to make the cost of living in this country affordable, right? You have to increase interest rates and severely cut spending. That's what you have to do. And considering how much debt that we have, okay, all the spending that we do, you probably have to do it for a sustained period of time. Probably at least a few years. The problem with that is that the effects on the economy would be so devastating that the party in power that did that would never win another election again. That's the reality of politics. And part of the reason why I know this is because look at what happened out in Virginia, right? Virginia should have been a lot closer than it was, but my gut feeling tells me that a lot of people in Northern Virginia didn't like the Doge cuts. They didn't like losing their jobs because the federal government decided to downsize.
The timing couldn't have been much worse for Republicans, right?
Yes, and of course, why did it turn out to be so much worse? Because that's the way Donald Trump arranged it. It's not as though these things happened out of the clouds. They happened because a president organized them, appointed people to run them in a way that would be very damaging to his candidates in many states, and particularly Virginia, given our large percentage of federal workers who've been furloughed or outright fired. So, all roads lead back to the White House. They won't want to admit that, but it's absolutely true. And many of the state Republicans are saying that privately. Of course, they'll never say it publicly because they don't want to offend President Trump.
Yeah. So I just want to be clear. I support the Doge cuts. I want the federal government to severely cut spending, right? If I was a dictator, right? If I was running this country and we didn't have to have elections, yeah, I would cut spending significantly, right? $2 trillion off the top. We're cutting spending. We're balancing the budget, and we're going to get our country back on track. The sad reality is that our country is built off of growth and debt, right? Our economy runs based off growth and debt, right? So if you cut debt and you cut growth, that comes with a cost, okay? That is just what it is, okay? So I just want people to understand that. I want people to understand the politics behind all this, because it's not about what I want, right, or what we want, okay? It's about the fact that, hey, people vote. And because people vote, this is what you get, right? So the stimulus checks from the tariffs, we're going to see what happens, okay? My prediction is that if they don't go out this year, they're going to go out next year. 100% they're going to go out before the midterms, right? Especially if the economy is not doing well. I'm almost 100% sure they're going to do it, because ultimately in the day, Republicans, President Trump, he's going to want to win, and he's going to do anything that he can in order to win. And these checks, again, let's be real, a lot of people voted for President Trump, and they kept saying, well, Trump had a lot of money passing around, right? And Trump had a lot of money passing around, right? That is why they voted for him, because of the fact that he gave out the checks, right? Before, in the past. That's just what it is. Particularly, again, voters who are low propensity, okay? So there's another proposal I want to talk about here very briefly that President Trump put out that he's also getting some backlash for, which is to normalize 50-year mortgages, okay, to make it easier for young people to buy a home via lower monthly payments. Now, this proposal, what I want to say about this, if you get a 50-year mortgage with the intention of actually owning the home that you're purchasing, you probably shouldn't do it, right? You're getting it for the wrong reasons, okay? The main reason why anybody would get a 50-year mortgage is for cash flow purposes, right? Not to actually own the home, but to lower your monthly payment so that you can invest the difference, whatever you save, into higher yielding assets than equity. Now, most people will probably get a 50-year mortgage to get the lower payments, and they'll turn around and go buy a car, right? A depreciating asset, or they'll blow the money on something else, okay? So I'm not even going to spend a significant amount of time in this video really talking about the 50-year mortgage thing, because it is demand-side stimulus. In the short term, I think it will make ownership more affordable in the sense that, again, you're going to have lower monthly payments, which hopefully will be lower than the cost to rent, so people can, get into home ownership much easier, okay? However, in the long run, I think it's just going to drive demand, which I don't think is actually going to lower prices in the future, okay? The issue that we have with housing, right, with housing affordability is a supply issue. And is also like the perfect storm of the fact that during COVID, interest rates were so low and we had so much money floating around in the economy that people bought homes at very low interest rates, and prices continue to skyrocket to the point where people don't want to sell their homes for less than what they just bought the home for. And also on top of that, again, they're in these low rate mortgages that they don't want to get out of because interest rates are high right now. Okay. So again, I repeat, right? If you're one of these people and you're thinking about getting a 50-year mortgage in order to own the home long term, you're not getting it for the right reasons. It's about cash flow and using the saved money, right, from the fact that you're getting the 50-year mortgage with lower monthly payments. It's about using that money that you save, and investing in assets that will yield a higher return than equity. And then in 15 years or so, you sell the home or you refinance, right? That's actually how you take advantage of a 50-year mortgage, right? A 50-year mortgage is probably good for people who are financially literate, right, and smart and patient and disciplined. But if you're not all those things, then probably not a good idea. I'm going to leave it at that when it comes to the 50-year mortgage thing. So these ideas are being floated out there. Some good, some not so good. And I want to know what you guys think. I personally think when it comes to stimulus checks, that's definitely, I think, going to happen, right? I think that it's happening because the administration doesn't want to lose the midterms. People want instant gratification. And these ideas basically play into that, right? With the 50-year mortgage thing, hey, you get the opportunity for probably a government-backed loan that will have a favorable interest rate. I mean, interest rates are going down generally. So it'll have a favorable interest rate. It'll be 50-year. Yeah, your payments will probably be lower than the cost of rent. And it will allow a lot of people to get a home. But again, there's a smart way to do it, and there's a not so smart way to do it. Just saying. When it comes to the stimulus checks, we'll see when it comes to inflation. I mean, technically, they're using tariff revenue, okay? And since they're using revenue that they've already collected via, again, tariffs, some of the taxes may have been paid by the American people. Maybe they were paid by China. Maybe they were paid by companies, whatever, right? I guess technically it's not really new money. So who knows whether or not we're going to see mass inflation from these stimulus checks. But regardless, just in case we do see some inflation from the stimulus checks, I already know what's going to happen, right? At the very least when it comes to the asset markets, okay? Maybe not when it comes to groceries and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure in the short term, it will make groceries more affordable. It will be a great relief for a lot of people. But, this is currently where we're at, right, in politics. And I think a lot of this is happening because of the fact that we had that election that happened last week that I think a lot of people are overreacting to. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.